Hey, Slick Talkers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I know that if you love this show, you'll also love my morning show called Good Morning Hospitality with my co hosts Michael Golden and Brandy Canali, as we spend 30 minutes every Monday morning to dive into the industry's top latest news and trending topics. So go check it out on wherever you find your podcasts at Good Morning Hospitality. And you can live stream with us on Monday mornings on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode.
Another thing is to check, there's various tools that you can use, right? It's good to get into those tools because they will really give you suggestions that you yourself might not necessarily come up with. So there's one that's called Uber Suggest. That gives you some pretty good ideas. You can type in some of your basic ideas, and then that'll give you variations on that and other options, similar things that people would search. There's also a bunch of paid tools that you can use that will give you keywords that will also highlight keywords that your competition is ranking for, just to show you maybe some words that you can also target that you could maybe outrank your competition.
Welcome to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast where we discuss all things hospitality, hotels, and business. You can find us online at slicktalkthepodcast.com and on every podcast listening platform.
What's up, all my Slick Talkers? This podcast is sponsored by Hostfully. You've heard them on the show before when I had David, the co-founder of Hostfully. What Hostfully does for the industry is create digital guidebooks, and they're a property management platform. So you can manage your vacation rental or boutique hotel on Hostfully directly. I think we can all agree that 2020 has been a wild year, but with this year has come a lot of great things like Hostfully and the software that they have created. Hostfully is making it easier to help optimize your listing and your vacation rental so that way you and your team can grow and thrive during this time. Not only are they a great software and platform for vacation rental managers and small boutique hotel owners to use, they are a very insightful company. They use a bunch of integrations and partnerships with other companies in the space to find the most compelling data to help make sure that any user or industry expert has the tools and resources to make sure that they are literally optimizing and using everything to their advantage. Things like industry reports and white papers and data insights are key to understanding how to continue to move forward, and Hostfully does this super well. Now I want you to take a look at the show notes below, see the link that says Hostfully website, click that, and if you sign up and get a guidebook or onboard to their software, use the code SlickTalk20 to get 20% off, and you will not regret it, I promise. So go ahead, go to hostfully.com and get signed up today. All right, everybody, welcome back to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. I'm your host, Will Slickers. Today, I have an amazing guest, and we're going to talk about copywriting and all things that I am not very good at. So I'm excited to have Juliana here on the show. Welcome. It's nice to see you again after a couple of weeks of getting prepped for this episode. How you been?
I'm pretty good. Hi, Will. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So for the audience's perspective, can you tell us where you're at and what you kind of do in the industry for hospitality providers?
Yeah, so I am based in a small town of Mainz in Germany, and I'm a copywriter for the hospitality industry. So I mainly work with hospitality-related businesses like hotel tech companies, hotels, and other business in the hotel industry, and write things like blog posts, customer stories, and other online content for them.
Awesome. And when we first talked, you have a pretty sweet background and story on how you kind of got to this. So I really want to dive in just kind of right out the gate and figure out, how did you get into the industry? What kind of clicked for you to be like, you know what, I'm going to start doing copywriting for hotels and tech companies in the hotel hospitality space?
Yeah, well, I always wanted to be in hospitality. Like, that's something I wanted to do for quite a while. When I was finishing up high school, I thought that would be like my dream career, because I always enjoyed traveling and going to all kinds of different countries. I think my parents instilled that in me because I grew up in Germany, but my mom's German, my dad's American. So we would often travel to the US to meet our family there and always explore new and different places around the country. And so yeah, I kind of had this love for traveling early on, and working in hotels just kind of seemed like the straightforward choice. So I studied hotel management. I got to do internships in Switzerland and Thailand, which confirmed my choice that I really wanted to be in the hospitality industry. And yeah, so I got to work in a few great hotels after graduating, and just kind of continued my journey of exploring the world while working in hotels. So I got to work in Jordan, in the Caribbean, in Paris, and then in my last position, I kind of felt like I wanted to do something a bit creative. I'd always enjoyed writing, so I was looking for a way to kind of combine this travel lifestyle and writing. And I came across this discipline of copywriting that I'd never really heard of before, right? It hadn't really occurred to me until I found out about copywriting, that all this written content out there, someone has to write that, no?
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of went on this journey and explored what copywriting is, what do copywriters, what do they do actually, right? And I realized that could be really interesting for me to do. So I did some online trainings, and actually when I moved to Bangkok to join my partner there, I was very lucky to get a job with a public relations agency who was looking for a copywriter. And they kind of gave me my first chance, really. So they kind of let me jump in the deep end, and I got to write for a lot of their amazing clients. We did press releases and like event texts and just all kinds of different things. And yeah, I was allowed to write for big name companies that were based in Thailand and were operating there. And I learned so much in my time with that agency. But after a while, I felt like, well, I wanted to get into copywriting, but still stay connected with the hospitality industry. So I kind of ventured out part-time on my own and started finding clients in that industry, and eventually became a full-time copywriter for the hospitality industry, which I'm still doing today, several years later.
Wow. So how long have you been doing it?
Almost 5 years now in total.
Okay. And have you ever seen the TV show on Netflix called Mad Men?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Okay, so that's like when I first discovered, because like you're right, I didn't know what copyright. I've heard the term copywriting, but I didn't, until watching that show, I did not understand it. I was like, okay, whatever. Copywriting is just like, you see it on like books and it's like copyrights and all this other stuff, and I'm like, it's just like, like a legal thing, I thought in my head. But getting into that show and binge watching it, during COVID and quarantine, I think I fully understood. I was like, oh, this is like what people like. They're the ones that create the website copy and the ads and the Facebooks and so I'm like, oh, that makes more sense. It clicked. I had a light bulb moment.
Awesome.
Yeah. So now that's pretty cool. And now can I just ask, what the moving around a lot, was your dad military, or it sounds like you guys were moving around was he moving around for work, or why did you guys move so much and travel?
Well, we actually didn't move at all while I was a kid. So I lived my whole life growing up in Germany.
Okay.
But we did go back to the US a lot to visit my dad's parents, my dad's brothers. Then he has a bunch of college friends that we would visit on different trips, and they're all scattered across the US. So on every trip we would visit like different people and see different states. So that brought us to traveling a lot in the US.
That makes more sense. I don't think I fully clicked with that part. But did you have a favorite state that you had when you were growing up to come to, or anything, any particular moment or trip that you're like, yeah, I would do that again?
I don't really have a favorite state in particular. It was more always linked to the people we'd visit. So we would visit my grandpa in New Mexico, which I really enjoyed. And then we have a lot of family in various parts of California. I did really like San Francisco.
Okay.
That's a pretty cool city, I think. And I remember really enjoying Boston as well, but we didn't spend that much time there, and it's quite a long time ago. So I couldn't really say what I liked so much about the city. I just remember really enjoying it. but it was in the summer. So yeah,
Okay.
I don't know if I'd like winters there so much. I think German winters are already cold enough. And I heard that on the East Coast, it gets quite chilly and windy. So
Yeah, it gets pretty gnarly lots of friends and family that live over there. It's intense. So
yeah.
not a fan, but no, that's awesome. So that's such a cool experience to have that leads into obviously the topics of what we're talking about today. But I want to ask you the question right out of the gate, and that is, what kind of importance can a good copyright for a hotel website or a hospitality business, do for that business overall? You've probably seen some bad examples of copyright and some really good ones. So I'm kind of curious to see what your thoughts are.
Yeah. Well, I think copywriting can make a huge difference to hotel websites or hotel tech providers, or really any business that has a website, right? Because if you think about it, a website is basically like your digital calling card and your digital sales rep, if you will, right? So if someone has never heard of your hotel or your bed and breakfast or whatever property you operate, right? Whatever accommodation provider you are, and someone doesn't know anything about you, and then they stumble on your website, and that's their first impression. So you really want to make that good, and there's only a very few things that impact that. That's, for one thing, the layout and the design, the photos, the colors, and then the copy, right? That's pretty much the only things that are happening on the website, really. And so even if you have wonderful photos and the site is fairly clear to navigate, if your texts aren't any good, like if they don't engage readers, or if they don't speak to them, if they don't highlight what's amazing about your property and why people should book with you and not your competition, then you really risk losing people and like losing their business. So I think having good copy is really something that can help you drive business and drive bookings to your property.
Have you seen hotels do too little of copy? Like they don't put enough on there, or do you see them put too much copy when it comes to their website? I'm kind of curious because I've seen a little bit of both. I've seen some independent boutique properties where they don't put enough copy, where you're like, what happens here at this property? Is there this? Is there that? Like I see a picture, but I don't know the hours or the location or menu. I don't know. There's so many things that go into it. But then I've seen hotels where you're like, this is a book and a half. I don't want to read it. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see more of the too much.
Okay.
Not enough can definitely also be a problem, like you mentioned. Sometimes there will be a lot of copy, but not the right type of copy. So like you said, maybe you're looking for the opening hours of the restaurant because you want to have breakfast really early. So you want to know if they're around at 5:30 in the morning, but you can't find those opening hours. Or maybe you're coming with a car, so you need to know that there's a parking spot. But again, you can't find that information, right? But instead they keep going on and on and on about the amazing view and their fantastic location. But usually what I see is more of having too much copy, having like these big solid blocks of text. Like you have a pretty picture and then right next to it is this really long text. And like you said, people see that and they're like, oh, no, I'm not going to read that. And then either they scroll on or they just click away and there's another booking gone, right? So I think that's one of the most common mistakes that just kind of scares a lot of site visitors off from the get-go.
Well, I was going to ask, what other key mistakes do you see hotels or hospitality businesses making? We already covered like too short of text, too long, not engaging. But what makes it more like, what are the key things, I guess, that either, key mistakes or the key traits that help create a smooth booking experience when it comes to copy? So we'll do a little bit of both, a little bit of bad, a little bit of good.
Well, yeah, so one of the bad things that I already mentioned, or that we both mentioned, is this solid block of text or having too much text that just immediately scares people away and makes them disengage. Then there's also, if you're not like clearly focused in your copy, right? You have to know who your target audience is. Like this is something that gets like said so many times all over the place. And that's because it's so important, right? Like if you feel like you've heard this before, then that's because it's really, really key. You have to know who your target market is and what they want, what's important to them. In marketing, it's often like, which problem are you solving? Well, maybe as a hotel, you're not really solving a problem, but maybe you're speaking more to a need or a desire. Like someone needs a hotel that's conveniently located close to the airport, close to their convention center that they need to go to for an event, or they really want a fantastic honeymoon. They want a great holiday with their family where they can relax and forget about work, right? So you need to know, what do people want when they're looking for a hotel in your area? And like what's really their desire, and then speak to that in your copy. So if you keep telling people just about your great location, okay, that's a good place to start, but what do people want in that location? Like, do they want an adventure holiday where they can do desert safaris and like go riding around in dune buggies, or do they want to just chill by the ocean for a week and just not do anything and just completely relax and maybe go to the spa, right? So you need to really address that in your copy when you describe your property and describe your amenities, your facilities, and your services.
Yeah.
So sometimes the problem is that hotels either they stay a bit too superficial and just say, oh, we have this nice thing and we have that nice thing. Okay, that's good, but why should your site visitor care? What benefit are they going to get from that? You have a great spa. Okay, what can they do there? They can completely relax. They can just let all the stress melt away. They can get away from the hectic sprint of daily life. That's the kind of thing that get them interested in your property, right? And that also ties in with this notion of storytelling, right? You want to show people the amazing time that they can have at your property by using vivid copy that really draws them in and positions you as this place that will offer them this fantastic experience that they're looking for. So that's absolutely important, to know your target audience and tell them what they need to hear to convince them to book.
Amazing. So true. And I want to ask, is kind of like, we're obviously in the times of COVID-19 and just a crazy 2020 year. What have you seen? So like, obviously, before the call, we were talking about, you saw like, there's a little bit of a lull with the COVID stuff. Like a lot of people are just trying to figure out how to save their business. But now that we've kind of gotten used to, not you like it's normal, but we've gotten used to, the way travel is right now. We're seeing more data. We're seeing more types of travel and trends and pivots a lot recently. What kind of role have you seen as a entrepreneur in the industry who does copy for hotels and these travel tech companies? What has been, is there any difference from like copywriting pre-COVID to where we are now? Are you seeing it pick up more, be more intentional? Like what's going on in your world with all of this?
Well, if you look at hotel tech providers, for example, there's been a great trend in creating valuable content that aims to really help hotels make the most of the bookings they're getting, to make the most of even like the tiniest bit of demand, because like even if you give like discounts or you have great packages, like if there's no demand right now or very little demand, then there's just nothing you can do, right? Or if there's like a lockdown, for example, like in Germany right now, hotels are not allowed, like by law, they're not allowed to accept leisure guests. So it's like, as a hotel, there's hardly anything you can do now to get more bookings, unfortunately. Yes. So the content that I've created with a lot of hotel tech partners right now is just to help hotels once things pick up again a bit, once there's what a lot of people are hoping for now, this wave of kind of revenge travel that we saw a bit of in the summer, but we're definitely hoping for more of that once things open up again, hopefully in spring. And then from the hotel side, I think things have become a bit more dynamic with like hotel website copy, because obviously your hotel website copy shouldn't be static, right? Like if you're putting on seasonal promotions, or maybe you're adding some new services, you're removing things, you constantly have to update your copy as well. Or maybe you just feel like revamping your website a little bit, not redoing the whole thing, but maybe trying to change your copy here and there to see if that can engage your audience a bit better. And it's been necessary in the last few months to make some of these changes, just to add information about what measures are you taking at your hotel, right? What are you doing to keep your staff safe, to keep your hotel clean, to keep your guests safe, to comply with local regulations. So I think that's very, very important as a hotel, to be transparent and to include that. And whenever something changes locally, that you include that on your website as well, and say, okay, we follow these local guidelines and we have our own steps that we take, not because we're being told to, but because we want to, and because we think that'll make our guests more comfortable. So I think that's really important for hotels as well, to keep updating that, and also be very clear with like booking and cancellation policies, right? So
yeah, 100%.
we've seen some of the big players with their loyalty programs. Like they were always really upfront about, okay, your points are going to be valid from here to there, and then we're going to change it from this date, it's going to be this way. And I think even smaller groups or small like independent hotels can do that and give guests really clear information about saying, okay, if you book now, or if you pay in advance now, then you'll get like extra credit later on. And like really be very, very clear and tell people what benefits might they have if they book now, or if they buy stay credits at your hotel. What are you going to give them when they come stay with you in maybe 6 months or within the next year or something like that? Yeah. So and just always really keep updating things, because right now so much is moving around and there's so much unclear that like people are confused. They're not 100% sure. Like make sure that your website gives information that's as clear and as up to date as possible.
Great. No, that's perfect. I'm curious to know, do you think more hotels, now that we're now that it was kind of slower and there's a lull, they were starting to, we saw like kind of two reactions with COVID, complete, all right, we're just going to wait and just not going to do anything. We're just going to wait till stuff picks up. Like in the beginning, I think a lot of people did that, like not knowing how long this was going to go. And now that it's been going on for so long, and it's still slow, but busy because we're always updating. Are you seeing more hotels start to be like, okay, since that we are open, but we're not at high occupancy or ADR or whatever, we're gonna work on our business to communicate this, and like for when we can open up more, we're ready. Are you seeing some of that when it comes to people being intentional with their websites and getting all this stuff done, or are they just kind of, we'll wait until things open up again?
Yeah, a bit of both, really. You see some hotels that are getting really creative and using this kind of downtime to try something new, be it with services that they offer, or like you said, with their website, maybe even their social media. But there's also this challenge right now that some hotels just don't have the money. Like even if they want to try something new or update, like make updates to their website or their content, they don't have the manpower because those people have been furloughed, the ones that might be doing that, right? Yeah. And then maybe your team is smaller, so you don't have the time or the manpower to invest in things like that. So I think it's a bit too easy to say like, oh yeah, you have all this downtime now, so go update your website and go do all these cool things. It's not quite as easy as that for a lot of hotels, and I understand that, but I think now would definitely be a good time to look over, be it your website or even some service standards, like brainstorm some new ideas of things that you could do once the hotel reopens to stand out and have some interesting new things that you can share on your site and via your social media channels as well.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good segue into what I wanted to ask you was some like basic SEO practices, because as we're starting to update things, I think a lot of hoteliers, in the sense of like big chain companies like Marriott or Hilton's or IHG, they're pretty well on top of like SEO and doing all this other stuff. But independents, mom and pop shops, inns, bed and breakfasts that have a website that's good, but they don't understand like what it takes to have good SEO and how copyright plays a role. Can you give us some basics, practices for that?
Sure. I mean, with SEO, it can be pretty hard to compete if you're an independent hotel, like you're not affiliated with big brands, or you're, like you said, a small mom and pop operation. But there's definitely some things you can do to stand out, or to like do a bit better on the search engines. For example, like including keywords is a big thing. You hear that all the time, because that is a big thing that you can do. And for example, instead of trying to go after these really big keywords that everyone is using, like hotel in like your city's name, or boutique hotel in this city's name, like you're not going to rank for that probably, because like booking.com is going to be there, Expedia is going to be there, Airbnb, and then after that, like a whole bunch of blog posts that are like the top 10 boutique hotels in San Francisco, or top 10 downtown hotels in New York. Like those articles take up page 1 through like 3, 4, 5 on Google. So I think rather target some keywords that really speak to some of your unique selling points. So be that something relating to a service you offer, something special about your location that sets you apart from your competition. And then something else that's really important is your site loading speed, for example. That's something that I think a lot of businesses overlook. If your site loads too slowly, then Google can penalize you for that. So really look at, are your photos compressed? Do you have videos on your website? Like, how could you better embed them, or add them to your site without bogging it down and making it slow? Maybe can you check with your hosting provider if there's anything they can help you with to speed things up a bit? Like their things can get a bit technical, but if you have a website developer that can maybe give you some tips, the person that created your website, like if they can give you some information, then that would really help. And another thing that often gets overlooked by hotels, I think, is also having links coming back to your website. So try to work with maybe local media, or with bloggers, or try to get some kind of media features that link back to your website. Not necessarily because that in itself drives a lot of traffic, but having these backlinks to your website gives your site more authority and makes you kind of look better in front of Google, if you will. So if you have good quality websites linking back to your hotel, then that can also help you rank better. And of course, it can drive traffic too. So there's those two options as well.
No, those are really good points. I forget how important backlinks are. So it's a good one that you bring that up. It's one of the hidden gems that you're like, oh yeah, I got to do more of that. I want to know some
time to build those though, right?
Yeah,
so
very much true.
It's not something like with your keywords. You can do that in an afternoon, right? You can do keyword research and then update your copy to include that. But building backlinks, that's really the long game, right? Like you have to find people to collaborate with. Not everyone you contact is going to give you a feature in their media, but really like just work on that consistently, and you will get those backlinks. And it'll take a few months, right? And but you will start seeing results if you keep putting in that work.
Agreed. I do the same thing with the podcast, so I totally get it. It takes a little bit longer on the podcast side, like a couple of years, but no big deal. Awesome. Well, I also do you have any copywriting tips for people that like, obviously you want people to come to you. That's like, you're an expert in this field. So obviously, but like any kind of DIY, do it yourself type style things, obviously those are really great SEO tips that people can do. But when it comes to copyright, like for example, can you tell us like, how do you even find out what keywords to use? That's like one thing I think I always, like you hear keywords is really important, but you're like, okay, well, how do I know what keywords to use? Like I could type in hotel and motel and B&B and all this other stuff, but are they actually ones that are going to work? So that's a good question.
Yeah, that's important, because sometimes keyword research gets mistaken with just kind of thinking and coming up with keywords that you would search for. But what do your clients or what does your target audience search for, right? So
100%.
if you want to start out like with something really basic, you can type in like say you're a bed and breakfast in some beach town. So you can start by typing in the bed and breakfast in that town, and then you scroll all the way to the bottom of Google and you see people also searched, right? And then you can maybe see suggestions with pet-friendly bed and breakfasts in this beach town, right? Because not all of them accept pets, but maybe you do. So maybe that's something that you can highlight. Then another thing is to check, there's various tools that you can use, right? It's good to get into those tools, because they will really give you suggestions that you yourself might not necessarily come up with. So there's one that's called Uber Suggest. That gives you some pretty good ideas. You can type in some of your basic ideas, and then that'll give you variations on that and other options, similar things that people would search. There's also a bunch of paid tools that you can use that will give you keywords that will also highlight keywords that your competition is ranking for, just to show you maybe some words that you can also target that you might outrank your competition for. But I think to get a really comprehensive guide on keyword research, I would check out Neil Patel. He's like an SEO guru, and he has like a guide that's, I don't know how many pages long, but it really gives you a step-by-step guide, step-by-step instructions that you can follow. And he tells you exactly how to do some really solid keyword research and find good words to rank for, where you actually have a chance to rank for them.
Yeah,
right? So,
a chance. Yeah.
That's something I would start with keyword research. Then other DIY tips would include, as I already mentioned, check that your files are optimized, right? Like if you have photos or things like that, really see that they're compressed. Obviously, they should be high quality, but you don't want them to be too large and just like totally slow down your site. And another thing I would go for is, like we already mentioned, you want to speak your audience's language, right?
Yeah.
And a good way to find out what people actually say about your services or the services they enjoyed or they really liked is go read your reviews. And for one thing, pick out what really stood out to people. Maybe what stood out to them is not what you think would stand out most to them, right? So go and find those things that people really love, and write down how they talk about them. Maybe they refer to them differently than you do, but if you kind of find the same phrases or similar phrases again and again, then that would also be something to include in your copy. Because if that's the way people write about it, and it's important enough for them to mention it on a TripAdvisor or a Yelp review or on a Google review, then that's something they might type into the search engine, or it's something that would jump out to them if they read that on your website.
That's really good. I like that.
Yeah. That's actually a fun thing too, because it also helps you go through your reviews. Maybe while you're reading them, you reply to a few. If you want to speed that up, you can also copy and paste reviews. Like I would go for like the longer ones. Like some people really put a lot of time into a review. Like if it's a one-liner, unless they really mention something good, if they say just great service, okay, yeah, skip that one. But if they have like written a proper paragraph, copy and paste several of those there's a tool called, I forget the name, something word cloud. Like it's a website you can use. It's free. You just paste all of those reviews in there. It can be several hundred words. And then this tool will create a word cloud for you. So you'll see like words and phrases that come up a lot. And then you can try to find ways to put those words and phrases into your website copy.
So good. So good. I love it.
Yeah, so that's something that you can do fairly easily yourself. And then when you read through your copy, try to find things where you can like break up these blocks of text, go through it and really look at what can you cut out, what is not adding value. Like there's these filler words that you don't need that work really well when you speak, but you don't need them in written copy. Some examples are really, right? That's a word that we use a lot, but when in written copy, you can just throw that out. Or when we make these really long garden path sentences and you're just kind of wandering around and you're not getting to the point, how can you shorten it? Like keep your sentences short and to the point, and really show people what you're trying to get to, what's your USP, what is their benefit, and cut out the fluff as much as you possibly can.
Cut out the fluff. I love it. That's great. No, I get that. No, you got a lot of good stuff and a lot of good tools. And I'm kind of curious now for people that want, like, let's say, don't want to do all this. Like this can be like a full-time job in the sense, but want to bring someone on like you. What are the best ways to find someone or to even work with someone that does copywriting? Because as you're going on into these details, I'm like, yeah, this is a lot to know. This is a lot to learn, especially when, hospitality or running a hotel itself is already a lot to learn and to do. And especially in the management roles. So I guess like, what are the, best ways to work with a copywriter to make sure that you on your side are getting the most information that you need to make sure that the product is good, but then that they're able to feel confident in these results?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, for one thing, you can start by just Googling copywriters. I don't think it has to be someone who's specialized in hospitality. I think it can be really helpful if it's someone who lives reasonably close to your hotel. And I mean, once you've actually decided to work with them, once like you've gone through kind of a bit of an interview or getting to know them process, it would be nice if they could visit your property. I'm not saying you need to invite them to stay there, but obviously, if you're a hotel, you can do that just to show them the stay experience. But I always think it's better if you write for a place that that you've seen. So maybe if you can find someone from your area, then that would be fantastic, right? To get them to come and really have a firsthand experience of what they would be writing about.
For sure.
But then if not, I mean, you can still get a great copywriter who lives halfway around the world, right? That absolutely works as well. Then, yeah, if you find someone, be it via Google or on LinkedIn, just drop them a line and have a call with them. Most copywriters will offer some kind of 20-minute, 30-minute, 45-minute free consultation just to get to know them and see, like, are you kind of on the same wavelength? Do you get along? Do you have the same vision? It really depends, right? Like what type of what type of property your hotel is, what that person might be used to writing. Maybe you're not necessarily in the same, like you don't have the same background. Maybe you're like a luxury property and that person would be more comfortable writing for like family-friendly budget properties or something like that. So you need to kind of test that out, maybe see things they've written before, or like do a paid sample, right? Like maybe have them rewrite one page of your website, like something small that can be done fairly quickly, and then see if you like that copy. And then if you do, you can go on with the whole project. I think that's something that works really well and that I do with my clients. Like we'll go and work on one page or one blog post together first. And if we get along well, if things work out, then we go ahead to like a longer term collaboration.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I think one thing that's really important once you've found a copywriter is that you really give them a really detailed briefing, right? You need to share, not just, okay, we need a new website. Yeah, that's good. But then you need to tell them or need to share with them who are your target, again, who's your target audience? We always come back to that somehow, right? So that's a big point. And you also want to give them information about your property, right? Like, of course, all the things that need to be included, like the opening times, facilities, services, that kind of thing. But also, what do you want to portray, right? Like, what kind of services? How do you want to make them look? Do you want to make them look really premium? Are you targeting more a crowd that's looking for something affordable? They need to know, or the writer needs to know how to make your property look to people. So give them really all the information they need, and be present and responsive. Like, if your writer has questions for you, and like, the longer it takes to get back to them, the longer it'll take to get the copy, and the longer it'll take to like get edits done and just get the whole thing finalized, right? So I know hoteliers are super busy and have so much to do, and there's always something going on, and there's always unexpected things coming up. But like, the longer it takes to communicate and to go back and forth, the longer the project is going to drag out, and then sometimes it loses steam and it gets abandoned. Like, I've been there as well, where like a project just kind of the copy was pretty much done, but then it took a whole other year before it actually went live, right? And that's kind of too bad, because they've invested in it, you've put in the time and you've written it, and then they had like all the wireframes all set up, and the whole website was kind of ready to go, but then something kind of got stuck, and that was kind of too bad to see. So I think it's very important to really be active in the communication.
It's like a relationship.
Definitely.
It's like you're dating, you just gotta learn and communicate and make sure it's a good fit, and then when it is a good fit, to continue not to lose steam and the romance and everything.
Exactly. That's definitely a key. And I think also, when you're choosing a copywriter, like, see, how do they communicate with you? How responsive are they? Are they listening to you? Are they incorporating your feedback maybe in this trial piece, right? And if you don't have a good feeling, then like, maybe look for someone else. Like, it's really like you're hiring a member of a team, right? They're going to be a member of your team for some time. So you really need to feel good. Like, don't just take the next best person because it's a relative, or because it's someone who's close by, and you feel like, oh yeah, well, we should get it over with and just take that person. Like, take your time, right? Like, it's better to take a bit longer and get it done well, rather than just like going ahead and forcing something that's not going to end up satisfying you in the end.
Totally agree. Smart and wise words. Well, I appreciate you just doing what you do, and of course, being on the show and bringing all this value and insight to the audience. I'm going to ask one last question: is any final thoughts or advice you have for any listeners right now with COVID-19 and just improving their copyright or SEO, or just anything under the sun that you want to, obviously, like where people can find you, stuff like that. And obviously I'm going to include everything in the show notes, but any just kind of final thoughts and conclusions for the episode?
Well, if you want to get started with copywriting and improve your hotel website's copy, or your hotel business's copy, then I think it's important to just get started, right? Like, it doesn't have to be perfect from day one. Like, you can always go back and tweak and try new things. And sometimes maybe you've written something and you come back to it a few days later, and then you're like, oh no, wait, maybe it's better if I say it like this, or if I choose some different words or a different phrase. Or maybe you write down several options of the same headline and come back to them a few days later, and you're like, okay, yeah, I think this is the best one. And then you try it, you put it on the website and see how it does there, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's this saying, done is better than perfect, right? Like, what is perfect anyway? So just kind of try and get out there and just get started, and then you'll get better, you'll get more comfortable with it. And I think you can really do a lot just by yourself already if you don't have the time or the means to invest in an external copywriter right now. I think hoteliers, they know their property so well. They know their clients so well. Like, you can write amazing copy. Like, you just need to kind of get started. You need to get maybe a few basic pointers, and you can definitely do it. So just get started and try. And if you want some basic pointers for a hotel website copywriting, you can check out my website. I have a guide there that you can download for free as well. And I hope that would help some hoteliers kind of get a hang of it and make their hotel look amazing and get more bookings when travel returns.
Yes, 100% agreed. And you heard it from Juliana herself. I'll include everything in the show notes. So go check out our website. Go ahead and check out that guide. I'm super excited to check it out myself. Juliana, I really am just super thankful for you being on the show. Again, you're amazing. I can't wait to see what you do. And of course, thank you to everyone who is listening to this episode.
Thank you so much for listening. We love your support and want to provide the best we can to all our listeners. So please find us online, social media, and on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast.
What's up, everybody? If you've gotten this far into the episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast, then you are amazing, and thank you so much for tuning in. We want to send you two places really quickly. If you can, check out the show notes and click the hospitality.fm link. Check out all of our other shows on the podcast network. And don't forget, if you have someone that you want to hear on the podcast, then fill out the guest fill out form so that way we can get them on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy another episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast.